Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Press Box Preview. I'm Tyler Cavali. He's Scott Foster. Glad to be a part of your day or whatever you may be listening or watching this. And thanks to our sponsors as well, as this is a playoff / end of regular season finale. We got a lot to talk about. 5 games today.
We do. We need to be efficient with our discussions today, or this will go for a very long time. We got a lot to talk about.
We really do. Let's start with our playoff preview here on a Thursday. And it's a game that can be heard on 880 KRVN. I'm excited for this, not only because I'll be on a call for this contest, but because it's just a whole bunch of athletes. Going to be probably a track meet, high-scoring affair. It's 5-3 Southern Valley, traveling to 4-3 Highline. This game will be played in Elwood. It is the first round of the Class D1 state playoffs. By the way, Scott, this is the first time that either one of these programs have made it into the 8-man state playoffs.
I'll be darned. I didn't realize that. These are 2 good teams, and you were right. There are athletes galore on the field. You might want to bring a change of clothes and some food along for this one. We're going to see a lot of points rolling up on that scoreboard this time in Elwood.
Well, Highline obviously coming together with Eustis Farnham and Elwood, so this is the first time that they have qualified for the 8-man playoffs. And then Southern Valley, first time that they've dropped down to the 8-man state playoffs after forfeiting last season and being 11-man before that. So a little history, if you will, being made between these 2 teams. Now, as Scott was alluding to, these 2 teams, they can score a lot. They're pure athletes, and really both of these teams are led by their quarterbacks. Highline's Connor Schutz, he can run and throw over 1,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, also very good on defense. And then you have Southern Valley's quarterback, Carter Bowes, 1,600 yards passing, 20 passing touchdowns on the year. These 2 guys, they really kind of get the engines going, if you will, for the respective teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's sort of a push between those 2. They can do a lot of the same sorts of things. They're very good. So what it usually comes down to in a situation like that is who is the X factor? Who are the support characters, if you will, that will really shine in a game like this, a Cody Keller type of player. And so it should be, I think it's just this is as athletic of a game in any of the 8-mans across the state, I think.
I think so, too. And this one has potential for being a very high-scoring affair as well. I could see – I know Southern Valley was in a shootout with Arapahoe last week. They scored 70 points. Both these teams have scored 50 points several times this year. But I would assume this is going to be a 50, 40, 60, 50 type of game.
Yeah, I think so. I just checked Vegas, and their over-under was at about 95, I think is where they said that. So.
Goodness, it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Also, just to note, Highline has lost 2 straight games and had the last game versus Cambridge canceled due to COVID issues at the Cambridge Public Schools area. So, but when talking to Coach Spiegel coming into the game, he says he's not worried about their last 2 games that they have lost and then that game being canceled. He feels they're in a good spot. Maybe something that you would have to worry about with a team that has never been in the playoffs. But these 2 teams, remember, Eustis Farnham and Elwood last year made the playoffs and had a decent run as well. So this is nothing new to these student athletes.
New program in Highline, but you're right. I think these guys are experienced. Probably the experience here goes to Highline, considering Southern Valley. It's been a while since they've been in any playoffs. So we'll see if that plays a role in this.
Well, it should be a fun one on Thursday evening, kickoff at 7 p.m. That game can be heard on 880 KRVN. First round playoffs. It's Highline of 4-3, hosting 5-3 Southern Valley. Meanwhile, over on Cammie Country, as we continue our first round 8-man playoffs, it is Elm Creek, who's 7-1, the 4 seed out of the West. They will welcome 6-2 Hitchcock County. And Scott, let me tell you this: even though Elm Creek's only lost 1 game this entire season, that was to Amherst. They played well throughout the entire year, but this is not going to be an easy matchup with Hitchcock County coming into town.
No, it isn't. And I really like what Elm Creek's doing. I think they're playing about as good a ball as anybody around here, and they've done it with big plays like you're going to see here on this kickoff last week. And I just really think that it's, again, this is a tough game. I like Elm Creek a lot in this game, but this isn't going to be a pushover game, as often these first round games in 8-man are.
Well, and the thing too is we're seeing here on the huddle clips that they're scoring at will, especially running the football. Xavier Perez has been a beast this year. 1,200 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And so when they can give it to Xavier Perez, and then when they can get the ball with their defense forcing turnovers like this one yet again, then you have a Perez who can top things off. This is a lethal team.
Opportunistic defense, a explosive offense, and they're just right now, I think, maybe playing their best ball. That loss to Amherst may have been a good thing for Coach Doolin, and so I like this Buffalo team a lot.
We talked about how they like to score at will. They've had 9 turnovers on offense, but they have forced 18 turnovers. Also, part of the factor of why they've had so much success this season.
Yeah, you look at teams that have that kind of turnover ratio, they win ball games, that's for sure.
Now for Hitchcock County, just quickly, their only 2 losses on the season, Cambridge and then Dundee County Stratton. So what's new for teams playing a DCS team?
DCS is really good. I was talking to Bob Jensen this weekend. I said, if there's a better team in Class D, I'd like to find it because they're really good.
Yeah, and they've also scored a lot of points as Hitchcock County, as they have scored at least 50 points in 5 of their 6 wins. So Elm Creek, either they're going to have to force some turnovers like we saw in their win against Bertrand last week, or they're going to have to just have another kind of shootout in order to move on. But this one should be relatively close, and I think should be a good matchup too.
I think so too. I like Elm Creek moving on, but I think they'll be tested, and that's a good thing to be.
Again, it's the first round playoffs. Cami Country at 7-1. Elm Creek welcoming 6-2. Hitchcock County kickoff is at 7 p.m. Again, that game can be heard on Cami Country. Both playoff games that we're broadcasting, by the way, can be heard at KRVN.com. Well, let's move on to our Friday edition of high school games. And this is the regular season finale of 11-man football. And we have a triple header yet again. We'll start with 880 KRVN and Cool Radio. It is 2-5 York hosting 3-4 Lexington. Let's quickly start with the Minutemen. Big win for them coming off of Alliance last week, beating Alliance beating Alliance 21-19. The running attack yet again was kind of their bread and butter for Lexington.
It has to go. The running game has to work for them to be able to do much. And like you're seeing right here, they've got to be opportunistic and make some plays on the other side of the ball. Here it's on special teams that they were able to get a stop on a punt. So they've got to get the short field and make something happen. This is obviously, I think, a must-win game for both of these teams.
It really is. Both teams have to win to get into the playoffs. Right now, they're on the outside looking in, so they both have to win to have a chance to make it to the state playoffs. York, by the way, is on a 5-game losing streak, including losses to Seward last week, 28-3. The defense, by the way, this season for York, to start the season when they were 2-0, only gave up 6 points in the first 2 weeks for the Dukes. Now they've been outscored in this losing streak, 146-63. So this is going to be interesting for York. They can't stop anybody, it appears right now.
Well, this is one of those games they have to. This is a must-win sort of situation, and so some teams are able to kind of muster what they need to do in wins like that. We'll see if the Dukes can put it together.
Must-win situation for either one of these to have a chance at the Class B state playoffs, which start next week. Again, this game will be broadcasted on Cool Radio, but we'll have it on 880 KRVN. It's the final 11-man regular season contest, 2-5 York, hosting 3-4 Lex. That one will kick off at 7 p.m. from York. Over on 93.1 The River, it is going to be a beautiful matchup of 6-1 Kearney Catholic taking on 6-2 Cozad. Really excited for this. Cozad coming off of an ugly loss. Let's start there with Broken Bow last week, 28-12. Offense really struggled. They ran and passed for over 100 yards each. Now, they did create some turnovers like we're seeing here, but their offense otherwise struggled, and what ended up being a brutal loss for the Haymakers.
This one was a head scratcher, Tyler, and I don't know if it was a trap game, if the Haymakers were looking past this Broken Bow team that has struggled all year long as they were getting ready for Kearney Catholic. I'm not really sure. As I was watching the scores that night, I was just, you just kind of kept waiting for Cozad to come back, and it just didn't happen. Give credit to the Indians for really getting their biggest win of the season last week. But now Cozad has to focus and come back together and try to win districts, because when you look at these numbers, they're sitting 14th
Yeah.
Out of the 16 teams that make it. They still may make it get if they lose this week, but they might not. So they're kind of playing for their playoff lives a little bit here.
I think that's the biggest takeaway from their loss against Broken Bow. Obviously, it's never good to lose, but the point standings, your wild card standings, they dropped significantly with that loss because of how poor Broken Bow's season has been. And just the win-loss column, that dropped Cozad significantly. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from that game.
It probably is. And Kearney Catholic is playing some really good ball after kind of we wondered where they were after a loss to St. Paul. They turned around and beat Adams Central, and I think surprised a lot of people a couple of weeks ago. They're playing really good football. They're in the playoffs probably regardless here. So it's really up to Cozad to put it together and get the win.
Now, if you beat a Kearney Catholic, you obviously get a lot of those points back and you rise in the standings. Obviously, you're in the playoffs. You lose because Kearney Catholic's so high and the point differential, you're probably not going to drop a lot in the wild card standings, but it's just so much easier to win. You control your own destiny. But the Stars coming off of a 49-7 win against Holdridge, as you mentioned, they only lost to St. Paul, but their future Husker quarterback, Heinrich Harburg, 1,200 yards passing this season, 11 touchdowns. They all can also run as well as Cale Conrad, 700 yards on the season and 9 touchdowns. So this is a lethal team that Cozad's going to really have to do a better job of stopping the run and the passing game.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Coach Cargill's team responds after that loss last week.
Kind of a playoff warm-up, if you will. If these two teams are to make the state playoffs next week, this will be a nice warm-up for both of them.
I agree. It should be really interesting. It's going to be a playoff atmosphere for sure.
Should be a fun one. Again, this one will be on 93.1 The River. Kickoff at 7 p.m. It's 6-1 Kearney Catholic taking on 6-2 Cozad. And our final game over on KAMI Country on Friday and also simulcast on KUVR. It's 2-6 Holdridge welcoming 5-3 Gothenburg. This should be a fun matchup between these two teams. How about Gothenburg? Let's just start there and a tip of the cap to Coach Hecox. This team looked dead in the water the first two contests, and my goodness gracious, they've turned things around. They won their district after beating Chadron on the road last week.
Coach Hecox, I think this is his 26th or 27th year coaching football there in Gothenburg. This might be his best. This might be his best coaching job he's done all year. They now understand, and we saw them a lot early in the year, and they were playing a tough district or a tough non-district schedule, I should say. And man, did they circle the wagons and put it together. They found an offense, which we saw against Kearney Catholic, that was kind of anemic, and you saw against St. Paul too. They've turned it around. They're scoring points, and they're still playing great defense, and they're doing it the way that Gothenburg has done for so many years. Good defense, running the football, and it's been an awfully good formula for the Swedes, and they are in the playoffs because they won district last week, and in Shatter they traveled to Shatter and traveled to Mitchell this season, but they have won the district, so they're in, and they're going to tune things up here against Holdridge.
Kudos to Coach Hecox. They have won 4 straight after, again, struggling out of the gate, really making the adjustments, and I think that really goes on him of realizing who he has, what they can do, and adjusting from there. Now, Holdridge on the other side, it's been a tough year. This is nothing new. They've lost 4 straight, but this is also certainly a duster team that can't be overlooked. Despite struggling against Kearney Catholic last week, losing 49-7, they do have some playmakers.
They do, and you can't overlook the fact that it's kind of a cornered animal, and you got to watch out for those. This is their playoff game, and they want to end things on a good note. They have athletes over there. We saw they went on a 2-game winning streak this season and looked pretty good before hitting some bumps in the road along the way. They've got guys who can score, and if Gothenburg, much like Cozad last week against Broken Bow, if Gothenburg looks past this one, they could be in a dogfight.
I think so. And for at least Holdridge this time, they're not going to have to worry about a lethal passing attack like they did with Kearney Catholic last week.
Yeah, it's a different scout for sure. They're looking at a different scout. Gothenburg has gone to sort of a flex bone, a kind of a offense like the service academies run, and that's a little bit of a different scout for sure.
Well, it should be an interesting game. Gothenburg at 5-3. Holdridge is 2-6. This game can be heard not only on Kearney Country, but also simulcast on a KUVR kickoff at 7 p.m. So let's just recap this whole entire enchilada. We have 5 games here, 2 playoff games, 8-man starting this Thursday, which, by the way, we should also make it known that we won't know who they're going to play until Friday because this is a new system for 8-man playoffs. They'll reseed everybody after the first round. So this is brand new this year. So you can't say, well, it looks like on the bracket they're going to play so-and-so because you have to wait till everybody's done. Whoever wins, then they'll reseed and go from there.
Yeah, much like they've done this upstate, they've done with basketball and volleyball and some of the other things too. They're doing it. Hey, it's okay. I didn't like it necessarily at first, but I think it makes sense.
So it should be good. 2 games on Thursday. 880 KRVN is 5-3 Southern Valley traveling to 4-3 Highline. That game kicks off at 7. Then also on Thursday, another 8-man playoff game. It is 6-2 Hitchcock County traveling northeast to Elm Creek, where the Buffaloes are at 7-1. We'll welcome Hitchcock County. That game will kick off at 7. That one will be heard on Kearney Country. And then in our final triple header of 11-man regular season games on Friday, it'll be Lexington traveling east to York. The Dukes 2-5 welcome the Minutemen, who are 3-4, kickoff at 7. That game can be heard on 880 KRVN and also simulcasted over on Cool Radio. And then on 93.1 The River, it is 6-2 Cozad, and what should be a fun matchup, traveling to 6-1 Kearney Catholic, kickoff at 7. And in the final matchup over on Kearney Country and also KUVR, it is 2-6 Holdridge playing 5-3 Gothenburg, and which should be a fun one as well. Did you write all those down? Do you have all the locations, the kickoff times?
I'm just going to listen to it again and write it down after we're done here.
5 games. Listen, we're coming to the end of the season. This is what it's all about.
It is. And if you're going to the games, you might want to bring a blanket. Weather is going to be a factor for maybe one of the first times this year, except for wind for a couple of your games. But it's going to be cold a Thursday night. It's going to be windy. Friday night, it's just going to be cold. So that could play a little bit of a factor in all of this, too.
Playoff football on Thursday, end of the regular season for everybody else on Friday, and it's all playoffs starting next week. This is going to be fun, and we look forward to teams, 1, trying to fight their way into the playoffs, and 2, well, for teams that are in the playoffs, trying to keep their season alive and move at least one step closer to possibly getting to Lincoln. He's Scott Foster. I'm Tyler Cavali. Thanks to our sponsors, and also thanks to Bryce Duskett of producing this beautiful video as well, and also producing our audio. Wonderful job, as always. Have a great week and good luck to all of our student athletes. We'll talk to you next week on the Press Box Preview.